Gross domestic product, or GDP, has been historically the most widely used measure of a country's economic performance. But after reading this book, Utopia for Realists, by economist Rutger Bregman, I think we aren't talking enough about just how broken this metric is. What if I told you that GDP is a metric that grows based on how much suffering our people go through? Could land value tax, an idea from the 1800s proposed by American writer and political economist Henry George, be a better idea than GDP? Let's talk about it in this video. If we haven't met, hello, I'm Julie McCoy. In 2021, I sold a 100-person writing agency and adapted to AI, working full-time in it. As the president of Brandwell AI, I get to see the production of over 50 million words a month. High-quality, brand-building content, not produced by humans. Creative work was one of the first realms touched by AI in the 2020s. I'm studying it, exploring it, and I bring you the truth as I go down the AI rabbit holes here on YouTube. So let's talk about GDP. Rutger Bregman's book really opened my eyes to just how broken this metric is. He believes that the idea of GDP itself, and that it still serves as an accurate gauge of social welfare, is one of the most widespread myths of our time. And he said this: if you were the GDP, your ideal citizen to raise that GDP would be a compulsive gambler with cancer who's going through a drawn-out divorce that he copes with by popping fistfuls of Prozac and going berserk on Black Friday. In other words, gross domestic product, or GDP, is a monetary measure of the market value of all the final goods and services produced and rendered in a specific time period by a country or countries. GDP is not just as simple as sending out a bucket of oranges, tons of grain, rice, corn. It is the market value of all final goods and services produced and rendered. One of the points Rutger Bregman made in his book Utopia for Realists was how the GDP leaves out completely necessary but unpaid work. For example, a mom who is both a housekeeper, caretaker, nanny, parent, cook, baker, staying at home doing all those roles could be adding hundreds of thousands of dollars back to the economy in her value, her monetary value, if you were to hire for those roles. But the GDP only measures the monetary benefit of a person in society. And that's why a compulsive gambler, addicted to medications, going through a lengthy divorce, is the ultimate dream citizen to raise GDP, because how much money that person generates across goods and services is quite high. But is that a standard of health? Is that a standard that we want to measure for in our country? I would argue not. And it really seems to reflect the opposite of true social welfare. So what's this idea of LVT, or land value tax? Proposed by economist Henry George back in the 19th century. Henry George was pretty much anti-taxation. In 1879, he wrote a book called Progress and Poverty. He believed that most taxes stifle productive behavior, and whatever is taxed highly won't grow. In fact, it will do the opposite. He believed we should create simple, flat taxes based on the natural value of the land as we receive it, and thus land value tax, a single tax based on land, specifically the unimproved value of that land, the value the land has in its natural state before it is built upon. His belief was that the value of land itself comes from its natural value in its natural state, and also from the value created by improving on it, for example, building a property. Because the value of unimproved land is unearned and comes to us in a natural state, neither the land's value nor a tax on the land's value can affect productive behavior. And again, he believed that taxes negatively affect what is productive for society. This is a very interesting way to set up taxes in a pattern that wouldn't deter productivity. But the land value tax can also negatively impact behaviors, because if it goes up based on the improvements you do to that land, well, that could deter individuals, companies from improving on that land. Henry George was a passionate advocate of free trade, and he was arguing for what he saw as the least offensive tax. In fact, Milton Friedman said almost a century after George's passing, "In my opinion, the least bad tax out there is the property tax on the unimproved value of land." The idea of quote-unquote economic rent created by the improvement of land's value by public works being the most logical source of public revenue seems pretty clear and straightforward. Could this work on a widespread level? I don't think it really takes into account automation and the factors of all jobs being automated, affecting how we even build property. Other alternatives to GDP that could work in a post-labor society include a GPI, Genuine Progress Indicator, a Human Development Index, HDI, a Baseline Societal Progress Index, and even a metric to measure gross happiness. These are the things that I think are more relevant to the coming age and a post-labor society. What are your thoughts on the GDP, LVT, land value tax, and perhaps other potential measures we could implement of a country's economic performance? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. I do think the GDP itself needs to be overhauled, and we need to think about a new way to measure the progress of society, especially in the days to come, in a world of AGI and beyond that, ASI, an almost alien form of intelligence that is far beyond human capabilities. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. As always, it is delightful to explore the rabbit holes of the coming future ages with you that are not centuries away, not decades away, but just a few short years away. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and I'll see you right back here on YouTube down the next AI rabbit hole.